What's up, everyone? It's Denise Salcedo. Welcome back to the channel. I am very excited because today I am in Hermosa Beach, and with me, you guys know him, two-time TNA World Champion, and he is currently the host of the second season of Vinyl Obsession here on AXS TV, starting October 6th. Eric, congratulations on this really awesome opportunity. I want to start off by asking you, Vinyl Obsession, October 6th, every Sunday here on AXS TV. You're the host.
Yeah.
Congratulations. What has the experience been like being on the show?
Yeah, I mean, it's cheesy, but I'm kind of living a dream. You know, it's music has been such a massive part of my life, this thing that I love. I started collecting vinyl albums about 10 years ago, and I got over 2,000 of them at my house now. I had to like build like a special rack on my wall, and it basically occupies one of the whole rooms in our house is basically a vinyl room, speakers and all kinds of other stuff. But yeah, it's like a dream come true. It's such a cool show. You know, I'm sure you've seen some of the clips.
Yeah.
It's just slick and it looks cool. And some of the people that we have on it, you know, like Dave Mustaine from Megadeth and Bobby Bones, Marcus King, who's a buddy of mine, Jeff Timmons from 98 Degrees, who I weirdly have become very good friends with, and not weirdly, I mean, just I'm not a 98 Degrees, you know, the band 98 Degrees. I wasn't a fan, you know, I respect who they were and what they became, but the show is it's just a massive point of pride for me, and I can't wait for the people to see it.
Isn't it so cool when you can do something that you're passionate about? Because you mentioned having 2,000 vinyls, and then now you get to come out here and you get to talk about them with other people and see them pick their favorite vinyls.
Yeah.
I mean, that's such a cool thing. When you were shooting this show, was there anything that caught you by surprise, whether it be from just like the people that you were chatting with, or the vinyls that they found, or just even as a vinyl enthusiast, something that you learned that was new?
I think that one of the most interesting things for me was, you know, you're talking to Dave Mustaine, and you think, okay, he's gonna like, you know, he's gonna love rock music, and he's, you know, Slayer and these other bands. But the truth is he's like, I love the Beach Boys, and you know, I love David Bowie and Duran Duran, and like just bands that you just don't think that they're going to like. But in the end, this music is just this universal thing in all of our lives. And I think about my music taste, and I'm like a person that says, oh, I listen to everything. Well, that's how you end up with 2,000 records.
Yeah.
Because I listen to everything, but I find that these people that, I think some people would look at them and say, oh, this is the genre of the music they make, so that's the kind of music they listen to. And the truth is they listen to everything, and there's bands that are super influential to them that people would never guess. So learning that and learning about why they like vinyl music, and sharing my story of how I like it and why. Steve Vai, who's a guitar player for, he's considered one of the top 5 guitar players of all time in Rolling Stone. I tried to talk to them about that. He says, no, that's not true, and he wouldn't admit it. But Rolling Stone said it, so I'm going with it.
Wow.
And he explained to me why human beings like the sound of vinyl. And I heard before I got into vinyl is, oh, it sounds different. I was like, it's just music. It doesn't sound different. And he goes, well, actually it does. And the reason why is because most vinyl is recorded analog, and an analog sound wave is smooth, and that's why it sounds worn, or you have a feeling of warmth when you listen to it. So learning why I like vinyl music, you know, having someone that's a professional teach me why was another really cool part of the show for me.
That is cool. And I'm so glad that you mentioned that thing about like you assume what someone listens to, because either, again, the music that they make, or sometimes even the way someone's dressed. You're like, oh, I bet you that person listens to this type of music. And then all of a sudden you find out something totally different. And that was something that, oddly enough, I was thinking about this week, is that you just never know what gravitates towards somebody. And so with that being said, when you mentioned 2,000, and I know you listen to everything, but what would you say are like your top genre, your top artist?
Yeah, I think this was a through line through the show, how family and friends affect your musical taste. And my mom and dad were both massive fans of music and collectors of music. Probably about not a quarter now, because I have so many, but you know, maybe 1/8 of my records wasn't from my mom and dad. So I've got like Bob Dylan albums that are older than me, that were pressed, you know, and I'm old. They were pressed before I was born, and they still play. And there's something really beautiful about that. But everyone had a story about, oh, my sister was 5 years older and she was so cool, and I would steal her records out of her room, and that's what led me to learn about Kiss, or learn about David Bowie, or you know, it was stuff like that. So that was a really cool thing. And I think part of mine comes from my mom and dad. They were heavily into blues music. So like blues and southern rock and music that sounds like that is what I'm really drawn to. And I think probably the majority of my record collection influenced by blues music, and Muddy Waters and Howlin' Wolf and B.B. King, and these iconic blues artists were people that Mick Jagger and Keith Richards listened to. And then, you know, people that were listening to them are now, you know, people like Marcus King, who listen to Allman Brothers and listen to the Rolling Stones. So it's the circle of life, and where people find inspiration is fascinating. And that's the reason why I have so many albums, because it just kind of depends on the mood. You know, sometimes I want to listen to Metallica, sometimes I want to listen to CeeLo Green. So,
Two totally different artists for sure. Eric, have you ever created music yourself at all, like lyrics or instrumental or anything like that?
Oh yeah, that's another really cool thing about the show is the only thing that matters to me about me being a host is that I love music. Yeah. That's the overriding thing, and it's been a massive part of my life, my whole life. And I'm very sure that I'm in love with it and obsessed with it, like I was with wrestling. And but for me, like, I clearly can't sing. I can't play any. I mean, I can play drums a little bit, but I mean, I can't read music. I can't write music. I don't know anything about it. So it's kind of like black magic. Yeah. You know, it really is a form of magic to me, being able to elicit feeling just through sound or through the way a lyric is written or the way a lyric is delivered. And there's a lot of similarities in performing professional wrestling, where learning to solicit those emotions through, I'm using my body or my facial, you know, my face or my eyes to gain those things, and they're using another artistic medium. But a lot of the things are very similar, and I think that's where the addiction comes from for me.
Oh, I love it. I read somewhere, and I forget how they exactly worded it, but I read somewhere that music has the ability to not obviously capture you, like your soul and your spirit, but to also help you change your thoughts.
Sure.
And just like when you listen to music, it can open your mind and help you change and form your opinions about things. And obviously that makes a whole lot of sense depending on who you're listening to. Yep. So of course, I think that music lovers are definitely going to want to check out the show. Yeah. And before we transition into our next topic, I do, of course, need to ask you, the full second season, do you have any favorite moments in particular where you were like, oh, pinch me, I'm so happy I booked this job?
Yeah. So, I mean, one of my favorite people to interview was Chris Shiflett. And Chris Shiflett is the lead guitarist for Foo Fighters, who's, you know, maybe right now the biggest and most popular American rock and roll band. Yeah. And what I knew going into it was he's been a part of my life for 30 years. I grew up listening to a lot of punk music, and he was in a band, a lead guitar for a band called No Use for a Name. And then he was a part of a punk supergroup called Me First and the Gimme Gimmes. And they do basically 50s, 60s, 70s covers, but punk rock style. And they're like one of the, Me First and the Gimme Gimmes is one of the biggest punk rock groups in punk rock music. You know, probably most albums sold and so on and so forth. So being able to sit down with him, and he was just such a cool guy, and from California, but like really liked country music and was led into it from Merle Haggard. And the connection there is Merle Haggard is actually from California, and a lot of people knew that, but he knew that as a kid, so it drew him to country music. And I would have never guessed that he liked country music or listened to country music before talking to him about it. But having the opportunity to sit down and become buddies and have this cool conversation with this person who's been part of my life for over 30 years. I've been listening to this guy play guitar and have loved almost every single thing he's ever done. Even though I don't understand how he's making those noises or how he's playing it, I can hear it and kind of know that it's him. I've listened to enough of his stuff and enough music. So that was special to me. Gavin Rosdale, massive Bush fan as a kid. And one of my favorite moments as a kid is we had a satellite. And for the first time living in Canada, I had MTV. And it was one of those spring break weekends, and they're in Cancun, and there's this huge music festival. They have all these mega bands, and it was this crazy hurricane. I can't remember what year it was, but I talked to him about it. And I said, I can still see it in my eye. If I close my eyes, I can see him. He's the whole band has gone off stage because it's too dangerous, and they're playing electric guitars, and the rain is like coming sideways, but the fans are all still there screaming, and he played Glycerine by himself with just the guitar, and it just seems so rock and roll to me, and it's so burnt in my head, this image of him playing, and the water's pouring off his face, and they're zooming in on the guitar, and this is like, his guitar is plugged in, right? It's not like it is now where it's on like a Bluetooth. It's plugged into a speaker, and it's electrified, so he could have been, zapped. So that to me was just cool, and to share that moment with him and talk about that, and we actually bonded over one of his favorite bands. It's called Steel Drum. It's a reggae band, and I just saw UB40 at this really cool concert hall in Tennessee, so we talked about they're both reggae bands from Birmingham, which is where he grew up. So it was this cool way for me to like get on the inside of his world, that I knew UB40 and talk about them and talk about reggae music, which is wild. There's a white guy from Birmingham and a white guy from karaoke and talking about reggae
Yeah.
music. But that's cool. That's what music can do. You know, it can make you bond over the weirdest thing, and that's a beautiful, beautiful thing.
It really is. It's so cool. And you never know what you're going to like or what you're going to end up liking. But with that being said, of course, you've mentioned little sprinkles here and there of pro wrestling. So I do want to get to that because, I mean, you and I have talked pro wrestling a whole lot before, but there's been a lot of changes since the last time you were here on the channel. And so let's dive right in. I want to get things started with TNA Victory Road. Now, the reason why I want to get started there is because TNA has been selling out a bunch of shows. And wow, it's been really, really cool to see that. So from your perspective, I do want to ask, what do you think has changed? What do you think has been different with the company that has led to all of these recent sellouts?
Yeah, and I don't think it's something that's happened just recently. This has been going on for 2 or 3 years, maybe longer. It's, you know, doing the right decisions and putting the right people in place and just kind of sticking to what TNA stands for. And TNA is a pro wrestling show written, produced, and shown to the world for pro wrestling fans. In those people's minds, we have them in mind when they're writing the show. When I'm performing or when they're writing or I'm cutting a promo, I'm thinking about people that consume the show, and those people are pro wrestling fans. And I think it's not been a secret to a lot of people that have been watching it for 5 or 6 years, but now the secret's getting out, and you're seeing it in the ticket sales, you're seeing it in digital buys, you're seeing it in pay-per-view buys, you're seeing it in all those things. So it's not me saying it, it's not people that are TNA fans, strictly TNA fans, it's the real world standing up and noticing that this is an unbelievable show, it's an unbelievable product, littered with unbelievably talented people, and the people should be watching it. So it's cool that, you know, I liken it to, I lived in Nashville since 2004, and I loved the city then, and then the secret got out, and now the city is growing like crazy. So I feel like it's not a secret to anyone who's been watching it, who has gone away from it, but now the secret's getting out, and the pro wrestling world is standing up and taking notice, and that's such a powerful thing, and it's such a cool thing to be part of that, even if it's a small part. You know, it's a cool thing to be connected to that, and to see this group of people all with their hand on the rope, pulling it in the same direction. That's I've worked in a lot of places, and I've worked for a lot of iterations of this company. I've worked in other companies, and that doesn't go on anywhere else. It's a very singular thing, and I can tell you it's an army of human beings that care about people's time and the money that they spend and the effort that they make to watch. We want to make sure that we reward them, and to be part of that is special.
It really is, and I mean, there's been so many changes too. We talk about, you know, creative changes behind the scenes, as well as just even with the name. God, like going back to TNA Wrestling, that was something that the internet was like, oh my God, I can't believe it. So there has been all of these changes. But the thing that personally, as a fan, why I've always personally enjoyed TNA Wrestling was because when I tune into the show, I know I'm going to get good wrestling, and I know that every match is going to be so different, kind of a little bit for everybody. That's just my opinion from a fan's perspective, but for you, having been with the company for, like you mentioned, several regimes, several iterations of the company, what do you think it is that TNA has done right all of these decades to basically still be out there being a top company, considering how easy it is for companies to go down under?
Yeah, you hit it exactly. I think pro wrestling is proven it's the ultimate variety show, right? And like, you can't just watch two guys smash each other for 3 hours, right? As fun as that would be to some people, it's just not true. So having those different flavors and those different speeds and those different genres, it's like me with music. Like I love, you know, Metallica. Let's take them. I love them, but I can't listen to them for 8 hours straight. Like, eventually I need a break. I want to listen to something else. So wrestling, I think, is when it's done best, it's done with variety in mind, and I think TNA focuses on that. And they also focus on is, you know, when the bell rings and it's time for us to deliver that product, I think they have some of the best people in the world. And most importantly for me is they allow them to be who they are, right? We're not trying to force someone to do something they're not good at. We're not trying to force them to be something that they're not. If you say you want to wrestle and this is what you're good at, we're going to take the light and we're going to shine it on that thing. So just trying to figure out what everyone's good at, what everyone wants to see, and making a solid show from start to finish has always been the goal. And I mean, there's times you fall short or times you don't make it all the way, but I can tell you that, you there's a conscious effort by everyone that works there, top to bottom, of trying to make the best overall show.
No, and you can tell, man. You can so tell when you go out there and you see all of the different wrestlers, like you mentioned, that bring a different style. It's been very, very cool to see. Now, here's the thing, and of course, another big topic that's happened is the partnership between WWE and TNA. Given somebody that was with WWE, what was your initial reaction when you found out that this partnership was going to happen, given that you've been on both sides?
Yeah, I mean, it comes as no surprise to me as a person who's very friendly with Triple H and not as friendly with Sean, but we got along very well and spoke a lot and are very friendly. I still talk to Triple H to this day. We're very good friends and we converse. We don't talk about wrestling much, to be honest, but we do talk quite often. But it doesn't come as any surprise. Like, it's good for both sides. What it really is good for is pro wrestling, is because it has people thinking and has people talking. Like, oh, what if this person shows up or that person shows up? And it's like I liken it to. I'm a bit of a comic nerd, so they had this series of what if comics, and what if the Hulk fought under, Wolverine, or what if Swamp Thing teamed up with so and so. So it was kind of like fantasy booking. Well, that's happening in real time, in front of our eyes, And I think really that this is just the tip of the iceberg, right? It's cool now, but we're really just seeing the beginning, the genesis of it. So the thought of, like already we've seen Joe Hendry showing up on NXT. That does a lot for them. Joe Hendry is one of the most popular wrestlers in the entire world right now. Him showing up on their show adds legitimacy to their show because it is populated by a lot of young, inexperienced people. I've been young and inexperienced. You can't gain experience by not doing it. So, but they're learning as they go and having people like Kazarian and even now they had Hammerstone and Jordan Grace showing up several times. That only adds to them. Them coming over to us and us being in a partnership only adds to our show. And what it does is it has people's interest and it has people talking about what could happen. And the beautiful thing is it could happen. It's not just a conversation, it's real. So it's a really cool thing to be part of. It doesn't come to any surprise to me that those guys are in control and now this is happening. It's a joint venture, a joint business agreement that is beneficial to both sides. And for it to not be happening would be foolish. So yeah, it's great.
It's so crazy because if you were to say this a couple of years ago, you would be like, hell no, that would never happen, or some craziness. But I also feel like it's a testament to TNA too, because it's like, okay, you mentioned Jordan Grace, Joe Hendry. Those were some of the top people that went over and made appearances in WWE, and they got such great reactions, right? Both of them respectively. And so it's kind of like yeah, we got some really great people over here. You guys should check that out. And it's sort of like it's a job well done to say, hey, these are the types of talents that we have over here in our company.
Yeah, and I think it's some people that are WWE fans are not aware of TNA. There's a lot of wrestling fans that only know of WWE and only watch WWE products. So them watching NXT and they see this, Jordan Grace comes out and there's this huge reaction, and this person may not have seen her or may not know who she is. I think clearly proof is in the pudding. People that watch wrestling know who Jordan Grace is. When she came out and she gets a reaction like that, or Joe Hendry comes out and gets a reaction like that, that's proof that people are watching and consuming TNA as a product. But what it also does is it introduces this whole other group of stars to an audience that may not watch or may not think they want to watch, but then they, Joe shows up and nails it, or Jordan shows up and nails it. That makes them want to come over and see us. And I think part of the uptick in everything business-wise on the TNA side is because of this partnership, is definitely is part of it.
That's very freaking cool. I'm telling you, it's been such a awesome thing to see. The fans are excited. We've been seeing, obviously, NXT talent also on TNA. And so with that being said, actually, that was one of the questions I did want to ask was, what is that like when you're backstage and it's like, oh, you got people from the other company here? And I don't know, what's the dynamic like backstage?
It's all the same world. Like me, I'm working there in the past and other places in the past, or, and there's other wrestling companies. They're all kind of the same, right? They all kind of exist the same way. And the truth is there is this cool kind of like unspoken brotherhood, like if they've gotten to this point, then they've done something, or they've worked hard, or they've sacrificed. So there's always this, underlying respect for people, even if you don't know them. And for me, like, kind of being older and doing this for a while, it's like they've seen me or they've heard my name. So there's kind of this like built-in thing, and they feel like I kind of know them, even though we've never met. I feel like I kind of know them already, right? So that's a beautiful thing I think with pro wrestling, is this kind of this unspoken bond between the wrestlers, male and female both, where it's just like we all get each other, and we're all very different human beings, but there's this one thing that connects us and makes us the same. It makes me be able to have a conversation with somebody that maybe I have nothing else in common with. But the overriding thing is we both do the same thing for a living, and there's a very small club. It's a very private and small club, and there's a cool bond there, this unspoken bond, which is a cool thing.
I love that. I love that. Well, with that being said, I want to thank you so much for taking the time to chat with me. Again, congratulations on Vinyl Obsessions and getting to do the show. Please, before we go, let the people know where they can watch, where they can follow you, and all of that great stuff.
Yeah, it's going to be Sunday nights on AXS TV, Vinyl Obsessions, starting October 6th, and every Sunday up until November. So amazing guests like Dave Mustaine, Chris Shiflett, Debbie Gibson, Melissa Joan Hart, Bobby Bones, Marcus King. Yeah, it's a great lineup of people, and just the people that worked on the show are so talented, and the show is so easy to watch and fun to watch. You'll learn something. Vinyl music rules, music rules. Please support the show, and thank you guys.
Thank you so much to everybody who watched. Thank you so much to Eric. Do not forget to subscribe. I'm going to catch you guys on the next one. Bye, everyone.